Today's lessons are all about boldness, in John's words. Boldness in the face of fear. Peter is fearless in the face of the high priest, which is so different from his pre- and post-resurrection crucifixion behavior. Remember those moments, the denial of Jesus, the non-believing Peter at the tomb, those great things. And here's Peter in front of the high priests. You. It's a very different Peter. And the words of the 23rd Psalm and the passage from John's Gospel are all focusing on Jesus as the great shepherd. And they're letting us think about our own fear, about letting go of our own fear, and about trusting in God. In the first letter of John, the author makes it very clear that we, that's us folks, we are asked to lay down our lives for one another. We. Okay, and I know that there's been a lot of fear circling around out there. I'm hearing it. And it focuses pretty much on two very different, but somewhat connected, but not really, issues in our life here as a parish. The first of these is my leaving, the fear of my leaving and what's going to happen. Questions like, how are we possibly going to go forward? How will we ever find another rector or a priest in partnership? There are many others, but those are the two big ones. They're circling it out there. I know they're out there because I'm hearing them. First of all, you will go forward because you are God's people. You are God's beloved. And God has a plan for you. We don't know what that is. But God has a plan for you. God has a plan for me. And God has a plan for Beth. But you can go forward as long as you are bold and trusting in God. You will find another rector or a priest in partnership to share ministry with you. I believe that. One thing I will ask you, however, is please do not stop what you're already doing. Don't wait for that time when that new rector appears. If you have plans, move forward. The Spirit doesn't just work through the clergy. Hint, hint. A lot of what goes on in this place comes to me from all of you, and I help you put the pieces together so that we can move forward. I don't make a lot of decisions here. I don't put my hands on my hips, say, I'm the rector, and we're going in that direction. People come to me and say, I think I'd like to go in that direction. And then another person will come and say, I think I'd like to go in that direction. So I get those people together, and then we all sort of head off in that direction. That's what's happening here. Don't let it stop. Please. You are a very strong Spirit-filled group of people. The Spirit continues to move and act in this place daily. So I invite you to continue to move out into your community, to reach out to those around you in need, to grow in your love and your understanding of God, and to continue to walk on your spiritual journey. You need to trust in the Good Shepherd and step forward boldly. Jesus, the Good Shepherd, is always out there, always guiding us, directing us, and pulling us into a fold, into the fold. At our vestry meeting last Wednesday, I showed a video about a church in Chicago that was at the point of needing to be bold and to be risky. It was clear that if they didn't do something, that church would close. It would close. So your vestry asked me to show you that video this morning. This church took steps toward real boldness in these moments of tremendous fear. They knew that if they didn't do something, they were going to close. And the result of that boldness was that they revitalized their parish, and it was filled with people from the neighborhood walking in the doors and sharing life together, not necessarily church life together, but life together, and a life that was supported by God. The community around us here in Arlington is very different than that community. However, it is very similar to that community. And you're saying, what? We are similar because we live in a community where we are surrounded by people who have never been in a church before, have no idea what church life, a life of faith, is like. That's our calling, is to proclaim the gospel, to live out the gospel, and occasionally use words. We've talked about that before. Now, some of that is happening already with Ashes to Go, with our free community dinners. We gather together. And this past free community dinner, a group of people gathered on Thursday evening who were not from this parish, but who wanted to be a part of the free community dinners. They gathered together on Thursday evening, and they prepared the meal. They prepared the lasagna that was served. Walking into this building for this group of young adults was frightening. It was frightening to walk through those doors. For those of us who walk through those doors every day, we cannot understand how that's possible. But for somebody who has never walked in here before, this space is intimidating. This building is intimidating. So they had an opportunity to come in and do service to the community. They enjoyed their time together. They made lovely lasagna that we all shared. They sat downstairs, they talked and shared their life of faith, and they had dinner together. They had communion together. That is what they're doing here. It's different, but it's the same thing that's happening at St. Paul's and the Redeemer. People in this community talk to me about how wonderful it is that St. James is going out in the community and doing all of these wonderful things for us. Things like Harvest Fest and the other one, Norman's Attic. You've been doing Harvest Fest and Norman's Attic for years. But there's a different sense in this community about it. It's no longer just fundraising for them. For them, it is very much gathering the community together and sharing our lives together. It's about hospitality and welcome. It's about loving our neighbors. That's what we're doing. It's just that we've changed our mindset, I think, in here about what we're doing. We're not here just to pay the rector and just to pay the oil bill, but we're actually trying to bring a community together so that we can actually have a good time And as a result, we can do those other things. But we're able to do our ministry because of what we do, because of our reaching out. Does that make any sense at all? Or is that just so foreign a concept? Okay. The other area I'm hearing a whole lot about is the removal of pews and the installation of chairs in our sanctuary. There's a lot of distress around this issue, I know. And again, your vestry has asked me to share pictures of other sanctuaries, other churches where they have gone through this process. And they thought maybe these pictures would help us all visualize how the space here at St. James could be used very, very differently. It's interesting pictures, so I invite you to enter into them. And again, I will move to the back. This is the presentation that went to the vestry. So these are pictures from the Cathedral of St. Paul, the Episcopal Cathedral in Arlington. For those of you who have not been there, this building was built this way to have a big open space and chairs, very modern space. You can see this configuration where everyone is facing toward the altar, just as if they were in pews. Choir is off to the side. The altar is up in the sanctuary there. Here they're shaped slightly differently. It's about the same, but really they're set at an angle to each other, sort of like a chevron. So it's like a V in the room. So they can kind of see each other, but not really see each other, but they are sharing a little bit more with each other. This, I believe, is the commissioning of the youth choir at the beginning of the year. And what they did is they were able to bring them right down in front, right out in the open, because there was flexible space. This is another setting in that same building, this time all the way around the center altar. This is done for Eucharist. It's also, this was actually from a wedding. And the wedding took place in the middle of all the people. Very similar to what we do when we're downstairs. This is a fundraiser that took place on our sanctuary floor. Imagine a pouring, rainy October Saturday morning for Harvest Fest and wondering where our vendors would go. And we have this beautiful open space to set up tables and welcome them in and keep our people dry. Another view of this same event. And then this is right up inside the sanctuary area of that same event. This is St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. They have chairs. They used to have pews. Their building is not quite as ornate as this building is. They had a disaster in their building where the building froze, all the pipes burst, and the floor of their sanctuary was flooded for 2 days with water. And they came in and realized that they had to do something different, so they pulled all the pews out and they refinished their floors. And the congregation looked at that open space and said, "Oh, how freeing is this? Look what we could do. We can do all sorts of new things." So they replaced it with chairs. It's another service, either Christmas Eve or the Vigil. It's a slightly different configuration. And then it opened up space in the front where they could invite children to just sort of all be right up front and listen to a sermon easily. They've also done dinner church in this open space with tables and chairs, and how they like the Baptist church. We've done it outside, and we've done it in the undercroft. It would allow that to happen right here in our sanctuary. This is All Saints Episcopal Cathedral in Albany, New York. This is a space that's very similar in style, not in size, but in style to St. James. And you can see how chairs have been placed in there. I believe this space was designed with pews, and the pews came out. church in Marshfield, Mass. This church was a traditional Methodist church, pews, the altar in the front, and slowly over time it was dying. There were just no people coming in. They joined forces with the Lutheran church, and they closed the church down for a year, the building itself, for a year, and they reimagined themselves, and this is what they came up with. So this is a Palm Sunday, and these tables here are in place all the way throughout the congregation. They're small tables where the children actually can meet with their parents, and there's activities for them on those tables. Okay, so the children are more embedded right in the congregation. And that's with people in it. And then the configuration where it changes, and they're facing sideways in the building, and they're having a concert. So you can see the flexibility of the space. The same space now transformed into a dinner setting. Vacation Bible School. This is St. Paul's Chapel in New York City. It's very close to the World Trade Center. It was the home of much of the work that was done in the recovery. It was, when I went to seminary, this was box pews, and when I left seminary, it looked like this. So they went through this process of removing pews and really reforming themselves in a new space. And again, it shows all this picture that shows the flexibility. This is the same, basically. That's the high altar there, straight ahead. And this is all the seats turned sideways for a concert on the floor. This is Christmas Eve service. And this is the children's Christmas pageant. Again, turned sideways on the floor. And they have that in here so that you can imagine if you have the children's pageant on one side or the other of the space, how close you would actually be to the children, as opposed to up here on the floor and people in the back rows, really unable to see. So it's just imagining how you can redo, think about the space and how it can be. St. John the Divine in New York City, the slightly larger church. It is huge. Statue of Liberty stands on the side of this building. It is just massive building. But they have chairs, and these chairs are very flexible. Here they're facing each other, they're all towards the high altar. And here they're completely removed, and we're having the blessing of bicycles in the space. And here's a closer view of that. And this is their annual blessing, St. Francis Day. And when they do St. Francis Day, they go a little bit beyond. So we do, they have elephants and giraffes, and birds of prey, the whole thing. So it just gave them a little more flexibility. It would be hard to get an elephant. And it's also used, this is also used as a gallery. These are the phoenixes that were on display down in North Adams for a while, which is a touring exhibition. And those things are about, they're huge. They're like 99 and 101 feet long. They're huge. They're massive. They're huge. And they're hanging from the ceiling. This is the Philadelphia Episcopal Cathedral. This was another space that had pews, and they redesigned themselves with chairs. Here they're in a circle for Eucharist. And here they're facing each other for Eucharist saw it in the video, just so you can see it in different formations. We saw that picture. And there's sort of here more in a circle. And the flexibility of that space gives them for hangings, and there's the wire set right at that facing each other. Easter Sunday. I think it is. So, the reason that they wanted us to see those, the vestry, I think, wanted you all to see them, and this is going to be an ongoing conversation. This is not ending today. You know that. But I think the vestry was thinking that if we could imagine, we can't really imagine what this space could look like without seeing pictures, without actually doing something. So the vestry requested that we look at some pictures of what the worship space could possibly look like with chairs in it. So that was some of those pictures. There are many, many, many more if we want to go search them out. Are there any first thoughts? We're not going to spend a lot of time with first thoughts, but we will spend some first thoughts. We can get our microphone to work. Okay. Anybody else? We will have more conversation. We will rerun the video so that you can see that video again either one of the next 2 Sundays but the following, so that they can have a longer conversation around that. There's also another video that we will show. The next 2 weeks we're still focusing on the Society of St. John the Evangelist Lenten series. We're sort of stepping back a little bit because Lent got a little too busy for us, so we're going back to that ministry. Okay, thank you. And I think what we'll do this morning is we will continue with the Eucharistic prayer. So the peace and the prayer, Eucharistic prayer, I believe this can be our prayers for the people